Okay, so for our next speaker, I'm really excited about our next speaker. Not to say I wasn't excited about our other speakers, I assure you. But he is president and founder of Hispanic Freethinkers of America, based in Washington, D.C. He's done some incredible work with high schools in that area, teaching critical thinking and just, skepticism skills. And he's just an awesome person, and he has an awesome perspective. And without further ado, David Tamayo.
Thank you. All right. It put me in the worst spot here because, first we got Matt coming in with magic tricks and all this fun stuff. Then we got Greta talking about sex. I mean, what else is better than that? And I asked the vice president of Hispanic-American Freethinkers, I think we should bring some tequila and pass it around, and that presentation. But she was afraid they would confuse it with holy water, and we didn't want to go there. Anyway, I have a lot of slides. I'll try to go through them really fast so we can get to talk a little bit at the end, hopefully. And so the agenda is pretty simple. I want to talk about who are the Hispanics in the United States, a little short background, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then talk about some issues that we have and why HAFRE, which is Hispanic-American Freethinkers, why we have this organization and why we're around. So let's get it started first. A lot of people are like, are you Hispanic? Are you Latino? Are you amigo? I mean, what should I call you? And so, there's surveys for everything nowadays. So actually, the Pew Hispanic Center did a survey, and they said 11% of the Hispanics call themselves Latinos, mostly in the California coast. And then you have Hispanics, about 38%. Which is a lot of it mostly in the East Coast. And then you have people that say, I don't care what you call me, as long as you call me, just make sure that I'm taken into account. But bottom line is we're all Americans, we're all here. Here in Texas, I understand there's 1 or 2 Latinos in this state. And so it's really important. I'm hoping that after I go through this presentation, you'll have an idea as to why we should care about Hispanics being secular and being part of what we all want, a more secular country. So a lot of times people ask, the first thing when 2 Hispanics meet is say, hey, where are you from? Even though they're 3 generations from here. Oh yeah, I'm from Mexico, I'm from Cuba, I'm from different places. Well, these are more or less for the whole country, the distributions. At the end of the day, we're all just Hispanic Americans, we're Americans. And yes, you'll see that it says we don't all eat tacos. That's really true. Only Mexico tends to eat tacos, unless we're talking Taco Bell, which is not real Mexican food. So let's talk a little bit of basics for the Latinos. Latinos, really what we talk about is an ethnic group. Latinos come in all different shapes, colors, forms. Some speak Spanish only, some speak English only, some speak Spanglish. And some shouldn't talk at all, but there are different things that we have. And the fact is, though, that there are 50.5 million Hispanics in the United States, and that's a lot of people. We're talking about 10 million more people than we have in Uruguay, Panama, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Paraguay, and Honduras together. So it's a lot of people. We got more Hispanics in the United States than many countries have in their entire countries. So that is about 16.3% of the American population. And to put it again in perspective, African Americans are 12.2% of the population. And well, they already have a president. Wouldn't mind seeing a Hispanic president someday. The fact is, though, that you will see that when you look at a person, and this picture up on top here, you can see that when you look at someone, you can't tell if they're Hispanic or not. Yes, some have Amerindian in their blood and some don't, but the fact is that they're in every form. So again, it's an ethnic, cultural type of thing, an identification. You saw also in a lot of the census, the last census, where they would say white but not Hispanic, or black but not Hispanic. And, I had a friend from Panama. His name was Carlos Chang, and he was Chinese. His family was from China that moved to Panama. So they're often invisible, and the goal of a lot of Hispanics is to assimilate in American culture and become part of the melting pot, like the Italians and the Irish and every generation that has come before us to the States. That's the ultimate goal. In the meantime, because there's such large numbers that have come over the last few decades, and I know here in Texas, the Hispanics have been around for a long time. In fact, Hispanics were in the United States before blacks were in the United States, especially here in Texas and Florida and Arizona and New Mexico and Florida. All those places had Hispanics before blacks were even in the United States. Now, Latinos accounted for about 50% of the growth in population in the United States. So I'm giving you all these numbers just because they will have an impact on us, like it or not. These are the people that we're going to be dealing with at every level, be it doctors, be it mechanics, be it whatever. The Hispanic population, according to the census, grew 43% from 2000 to 2010, and the Latino population is expected to double in the next 50 years. So that is a lot of people, a lot of Hispanics. The other interesting thing about the Hispanic population is they're very young. The median age is 27.2 years versus the general population, which is about 36 years. Now, for our movement, for secularism, that's a good thing. Younger people, doesn't matter what culture, tend to be more open-minded, more receptive to listen to new ideas, and this is something that we should take advantage of, all of us. 17.1 million Hispanics are under the age of 18. So that's about 35% of the Hispanics are below 18, which means that whatever we do today to make sure that these kids become more secular, we're going to see the payoff in a few years, or not, see the opposite. Okay? And as I mentioned before, Hispanics will speak Spanish only, will speak English only, or will speak Spanglish in a combination of both. I have a son who's now 27, was born here in the United States, and it was really tough to get him to speak Spanish up until the 8th grade, when I was talking to him, and another classmate of his came and said, "What is that jumble mumble you're talking about?" He says, "Oh, I was talking Spanish with my parents," and the kid said, "Oh, that's so cool." After that, I couldn't shut him up. Even when he shouldn't speak Spanish, in elevators with other people, or when I'm talking to the teacher, he's talking to me in Spanish. So it's always good to speak more than one language, whether Spanish, French, or any other language. It's always good to be multicultural and multilingual. So, Latino religion. Most people say, Latino, Católico. They're Catholics everywhere. Well, that's the case that's the case in Latin America more than in the United States. So in the United States, in 2007, you see at the bottom the study was in 2007. 68% of the Hispanics were Catholic. Now that 68% that we all think is Catholic, but really we're multi-faith. We have a lot of faiths, and including seculars, as I've met some of you who are Hispanic who are here today. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has 34 million Latinos in its ranks here in the United States. Now, it's the church, as most of you know, receives the most members because of immigration, but it also loses the most members. I'm a former Catholic, and most Catholics are lousy Catholics because they don't know why they do things. They don't know why they have to get up and sit down and kneel, and that's it. And so they're easy to convert. They're good targets to convert for other religions. Now, in the United States, 1/3 of all Catholics in the United States are Latino. So the Catholic Church depends a lot on Latinos for keeping its ranks here. Otherwise, they'd be going the way Ireland is going. Last year, not a single priest, for the first time ever, was ordained in Ireland. We want to see that here in the United States also. So the Catholic Church is expected to go from that 68% to 60% by 2030, and faster if we can help it, I'm sure. Okay, now Protestants. A lot of the Catholics become Protestants. So there are 10 million Latinos that are Protestant today in the United States. And, if you think 10 million just to put it in perspective, there are only about 2 million, there are about 4 million to 5 million Jews in the United States. So that's twice as many Jews as there are in the United States. It's a huge number. Now, there are about 4 million non-believers, being Latinos mostly underground. And, a recent study shows that the number of nuns in the Latino community has grown. So, yes, a lot of them have left the Catholic Church, and now they haven't. Let's always be careful. Nuns does not mean atheist, does not mean secular necessarily. They just mean they just gave up on the church and they're not going to church. They still believe in a lot of things that they shouldn't believe. They still believe in God and angels and often magic, as we'll see in a second. So let's talk about the good. Good things about Latinos in the United States that you may not know. 66% of the Latinos favor legal abortion. I mean, that's sort of unexpected considering how Catholic they are. I said they were not good Catholics. So Latinos tend to be a little more pragmatic. Yeah, the priests say that, but I can always go to confession. And it's really what the Catholic Church has gone for. The confession is just erase it and start all over again. Now, the second and third generation Latinos, they're less religious than foreign-born Latinos. Again, back in the old country, the church plays a much more integral part of society. Once we're here, we see other ideas, other cultures. They're already open to new culture because we're here in the States. So, as second and third generation, and as many of you from your own experience, yeah, I'm an atheist, but I'm not telling my grandma, abuelita, because she'll die if she knows I'm an atheist. So that's a lot of them are, but they're not very public about it. So you can see some statistics that I've stolen from the Pew Research Center. They do an excellent job, and that shows the numbers, basically, how second, third generation get better. Now, another good thing is 60% of the Latinos support same-sex marriage. Now, many of you might have not thought of that when Prop 8 happened in California, and a lot of Latinos were involved in that. But you have to think of the millions upon millions of dollars that were put in misinformation by the Mormon Church in there in order to get things screwed up in California. But overall, 60%, and the statistics keep showing that that's the case, 60% believe in same-sex marriage. Now, I approached the topic to my parents recently. What I do, and I recommend you guys do this when you get a chance, is I carry a little tape recorder. I just, went to visit my parents. They're early 70s, and I put the recorder in the middle while my mom is fixing breakfast, and it's just the two of them. And I say, hey, Mom, who did you vote for in the last elections? And, and go from there. And what do you think of same-sex marriage? And, and the first is the initial, I don't want those same, they're going to destroy the sanctity of marriage and da-da-da-da. And once you start talking to them, you realize that they're not as hardcore about it. I don't know why, but it seems that Latino culture seems to be less harsh and hung up about sexuality than mainstream America. But so that's a good thing, and we need to capitalize on that and push on that. So now some of the bad things. So religion is part of the Latino culture. A lot of things are about baptisms and a lot of excuses for partying. We're happy people. You will see also that the Latino families tend to be very wholesome in the sense that you go to a Latino party and you will see the toddler that is 2 years old, barely walking, and grandma, and everybody's dancing with everybody, and everybody's listening to the same kind of music, and everybody's sort of eating the same kind of food. So it's really part of the integration again. Putting all of this. But religion is very involved. My parents 2 weekends ago celebrated their 50th anniversary. They know I'm an atheist, and I'm the oldest of the family, so it was up to me to get up and give a little speech to the whole family, all 200 of them. And we had, we reproduced. And there was the preacher, there was the priest, and a couple of my brothers came and said, hey, behave with the priest, please. Don't be challenging the priest. And I said, no, it'll be okay. But you'll see the gimmicks. The churches use that a lot. You see, a lot of, free English classes, free citizen classes come. And, after, of course, those classes, I assure you, they're always an hour or two before the services. Oh, stay for the services. And now you fit in debt, you're learning the language, they're teaching you and so on. Now you feel indebted. Oh, well, they were so nice to me. How can I say no to just, sitting there? And the brainwashing starts. So that is sadly in fact, I'm staying at the hotel here that was recommended. And literally 2 blocks from the hotel, there's a church that says, it's not this one, but it says clases de inglés, free, come for the classes, stay for the donuts, all of that. Now, a big problem that we have also is underreported pedophile in the Catholic Church. Let's take Los Angeles, for instance. The majority of Catholics in Los Angeles are Latinos, and yet when you look at the number of pedophile cases being reported, the children that are being abused over there, you'd think that they think that Latino kids are disgusting or something because it looks like they won't touch them, and that's not the case. The majority of kids, I'm sure, that are being molested there are Latinos, but they know that they're easy targets. A lot of them are undocumented, or undocumented parents, and so they know they're not going to report it to the authorities. So they're actually, in my opinion, and again, there are no hard numbers on this. It's very hard to get hard numbers on this right now. In my opinion, and just by the statistics, as Matt was saying before, you got to look at the odds. Just the odds, you have to believe that the number of Latino kids in there has to be at least the same percentage as mainstream kids being abused. And yet, you don't see that being reported in the United States. And the bishop there, Mahoney, said, oh, well, that's only an American problem. In Latin America, there's no problem in that. And in Africa, there's no problem with that. And yeah, okay, so... Now, the problem is that a lot of Latinos also say that religion influences their politics. So that's kind of a pain. Now, fortunately, that didn't pan out too much. So again, I think he's not being a good religious person. Obama, as we know, was greatly supported by Latinos and minorities and women. And for the first time, I keep telling people, you got to pay attention to the Latinos because they're becoming a greater and greater influence in our lives, in American life. And if we sit around and ignore them, it'll be our peril. As the Republicans at the last election, they suffered the consequences of that. So now the ugly, superstition. This is the thing that drives me up the wall. In every city, anywhere I go look for the Latino neighborhoods and stuff, and you will see botanica. That's another word for bullshit. You go in there and you have your saints, and you have your powders, and you have your stuff. And, the first computers. The first computer system that I installed was for a guy that had one of these botanicas. He worked in the front of the store, so there was a store with all the powders and the weeds and things like that. And the wife worked in the back, and the people made appointments, and she would read the palm and do all kinds of magic and all kinds of things, and give them like a recipe or something, and they'd come out and buy all the stuff that she recommended. And the powder, you take this powder and you put it behind the door, and that would be for the evil eye, and you get this for the, if you want somebody that you don't want to visit in your house next time they visit, you take this broom and you put this powder and you put it in the behind, and that people will never come. Stuff that is just outlandishly stupid, but people believe it in tradition. And some of you were telling me before, that grandma used to say, yeah, the evil eye would take an egg and would rub you with it, and silly stuff. Well, there are millions and millions of dollars that are spent on these things, and usually by the people that are the most poor and that need the money the most. So even from the human dignity part, we need to pay attention to these things and try to help out. Now, as unemployment climbed, when the economy took a dive, the Botanica sale, there was one in New York City that they reported a yearly sales of $5 million. I mean, it's $5 million of selling trash, of selling stuff that is not that good. Worse, 49 Botanicas in New York City last year were selling mercury in a container, selling mercury. And now, so when the city found out, You think the city say you can't do that. You can't be selling mercury to just, gullible people. No, they say you have to put a little label on it and say that this might be dangerous. And they continue selling it because it goes under this is a religion kind of thing. So we have to be careful about that. Now that first sign, this is from my local paper in Washington, D.C. People in there go to these people when they feel ills. And they got, let me translate what it says in there. It says, Brother Gabriel will cure all your diseases. Brother Gabriel will solve all your problems. Brother Gabriel will tie up. Tie up means, he'll do a magic thing so you can get the girl or boy of your dreams, or keep your husband so he doesn't stray, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, there are testimonies. And at the bottom right, it says, he will interpret your dreams, and he will read the cards, and so on and so forth. And, if I didn't have any ethics and I had the stomach for it, it sounds like, this next to being a priest is kind of a pretty good job. So, now some things to think about. Well, what I'm telling you, other churches have noticed this. The Mormons, man, they are after the Latinos like you wouldn't believe. So, let me see, about 2 months ago, I was on Facebook, and I get this sign in the right-hand side in Spanish that says, Soy Mormon, I'm a Mormon, and I'm Latina, and I'm from Guatemala, would you like to talk? And I said, well, let me click on it, and it says, well, give us your name, phone number, and all of that, and I did. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, I get a phone call from a couple of young ladies saying, you want to talk about the Mormons? Let's get together in perfect Spanish. And I said, yes, let's get together. I took my handy-dandy recorder that I told you about, put it on the table. I used my phone as a backup just in case that didn't work. And we sat down. Well, these two young ladies, 22 years old, they actually were born and raised in the United States. 5 generations Mormons. One was from Utah, the other one was from Oregon. And flawless Spanish, and at a very high level, because talking about religion is a very abstract kind of thing. And they said, I asked them, where did you learn Spanish? Did you travel to Latin America? Whatever. They said, no, here, Falls Church, Virginia. I said, but did you? No, just they sent us here. We got to go somewhere for 2 years for some missionary, and here we are. And their job was to recruit and concentrate only on the Latino community. And, it was fun for me because I started questioning their stuff and all of that. And at the end, they finally asked, well, what religion are you? I thought you said your family was Catholic. I said, well, yeah, my family is Catholic, but I'm atheist. Oh, I've never talked to an atheist. We're not prepared for this. And that's it. They left. And so the Mormons are, they grew up by 37% because of the Latinos. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they would have been gone by now had it not been for the Latinos, and the Pentecostals. The Pentecostals are the fastest growing religion in the United States and Latin America. So a lot of the people that are leaving the Catholic Church, instead of getting to something lighter than that, they go to the hardcore stuff. And, I don't exaggerate. If you go to Manassas, Virginia, when the economy took a dive, all these warehouses went out of business. And I tried to take a picture before coming here, didn't have the time. But they took these warehouses one by one, and this Pentecostal church, blah, 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 and Emmanuel Pentecostal church, and they're in a row, 7, 8, 9 churches in this row, another 9, 10 churches in this row, all Pentecostals, and all Latino, and I think there was one that wasn't, and everything else was, Latino. So, for the owner of this industrial park, he's like, hey, I'll rent it to anybody, and these guys are paying for it. So that's something, and these are people that are, again, tend to be less educated, but they come in and become really hooked. They go and they speak in tongues. Well, some of you that know, the whole thing is, but there's also Islam. And, Latinos are starting to join Islam. The Islam realized, hey, this is also another easy pickings group. Let's bring it in. We'll use the same gimmicks. We're going to teach you English. We're going to teach you this. We're going to teach you that, and indoctrinate it. So those three. For those of you that might not understand, this one says "I speak Islam" in Spanish in the middle. Some pamphlets in Spanish about Muhammad, and Alianza Islámica, Islamic Alliance El Barrio in New York City. So, I don't know if you remember shortly after 9/11 that they captured one guy arriving. It was, I forget his name. He was Puerto Rican, and he was a jihadist. So we have to be careful. In religion and Latino seems to go together, and we need to work. All of us. It's our responsibility to try to get this, separated. You can see, the National Hispanic Prayer, and politicians will. Obama is a politician, and I voted for him, but he's far from perfect, and he will cater to religion like any other politician, because that's their bread and butter. But Latinos support school prayer, 73%, and school vouchers, 84%. And a lot of them say, I've had them say to me, look, I support school vouchers because I want my son to go to a private school because the private schools are better than public schools. And so, it's not because necessarily they want to indoctrinate them, but I have friends who are atheists and are sending their kids to Catholic school because they're better schools, and they said, I want them to have a better education, and I'll try to wash them when they get home. They brainwash them there. I'll try to reverse it when they get home. It's not always not always as easy. And another interesting thing is Latinos. The majority of Latinos are against organ donation on religious ground. So I looked up South Texas, that has a population of 1.5 million, only 19 donations. So again, that's when you think it doesn't affect the rest of us, it affects everybody, because doesn't matter what race you're in, what ethnic group you belong to. If you're waiting for a kidney and somebody somebody says no, because I want her to be buried complete. My daughter that died in a car accident, I want her to be buried whole. And that's I put that example because I've heard that exact example being done. That hey, I don't want her to go to heaven without kidneys. So some Latino challenges. Okay, Latinos, when they're unhappy, they usually change religion. So 18% of Latinos change religion. Remember, over 50 million people changing religions. So that's why religions are after them. Then there's also a big dropout rate in the Hispanic community. Again, that will affect us. It affects us in the form of crime. It affects us in a lack of scientists, a lack of educated people, and so forth. So that's something that will affect us directly or indirectly. Now, by 2016, 1 in 3 people are going to be Hispanic. So that growth it's sort of an exponential growth. I guess a lot of people follow Greta's advice on sex, so they reproduce a lot, or lack of TVs, I'm not sure. So remember, if Latinos are going to be taking care of us in our old age, do we want them to use real medicine or homeopathy? The problem with Latinos right now is a lack of secular leadership. For instance, one of the things I admire about Matt Dillahunty is his ability to debate. We have no one in the Latino community that is even close to being a great debater like that. And we need to find those people that are good, that have a good memory, that can think quickly on their feet in order to head off some of these things and have those debates in public. Again, when you're debating somebody, you're not doing it to convince that other person, but really to convince anyone that is watching the show. So as you can see, the Hispanics are going to continue growing. So that's why Hispanic-American Freethinkers was formed. About 2 years ago or so, a little bit longer, after going to a lot of events, I found that there were hardly any Latinos in there. And I'm thinking, we have this huge tide of Latinos, this huge wave of Latinos coming to this country and moving in and sort of becoming parts of our lives one way or another, and they're not becoming secular. They're not seeing this thing. So we dream of having a secular America that includes Latinos. We are the first nonprofit 501c3 tax deduction. Anybody? If you're looking for tax deductions, that's been formed. We recognize. So the reason is, why have a separate group for Latinos? We encourage every member of our group, every member of HAFRI, to join every group that they can, because we all have the same goals. It's all the same end game. And the idea is that Hispanic-American freethinkers, we can often understand the cultural differences and the cultural issues. And I'll give you a quick example. We had one young lady from California, send me an email and say, hey, look, you know, my niece was just diagnosed, she's 5, she was just diagnosed with cancer, level 3 or whatever it's called, you know, pretty advanced. And, you know, my whole family got really pissed at me because they wanted to pray for her, and I didn't want to pray for her. You know, what do? They tell me that I hate her, that, you know, why am I being so mean to my niece? And so, even though the niece wasn't there for the prayer. So, you know, the kind of advice we give them, and that deals specifically with this Latino family type of style. So we gave her some advice, and she took that advice and later wrote, so yeah, that worked out perfectly. The advice we gave her, by the way, was, that's not the time to argue whether God exists or doesn't exist or whatever. Just say, you know, just show with your own actions that you're better than everybody else. Go to your niece's mother, to your aunt, and go, you know, take care of the house when she's at the hospital, or take care of any other kids, or help her clean the kitchen, and show her, you know, with actions that you care, especially when everybody else is praying. You go do those things instead, and that way you see with your own, they see you and that you're doing something. So, you know, we're all volunteer professional staff. No one gets paid or anything like that, and as I said, we work on helping out the community. Well, one of the things that we do that I'm very proud of is we were able to get into the high schools in Northern Virginia and the Fairfax school system. And thanks to one of our members who's a teacher there, and we are brought in now on a regular basis to give seminars on critical thinking skills to English as second language students and bring it in. So the first day, the principal is there, you know, trying to see what this is all about. Of course, we don't talk about religion, we don't talk about politics unless the kid brings it up. But the idea is to show them, again, how to think, question everything. And, you know, you get the smart-ass kid and say, oh, can I question my teacher? And say, yes. Can I question my parents? Yes, but with respect. Can I question the preacher? Yes. Question everything. And the idea is to get him to say, look, it's okay to ask questions. The truth is not afraid of being questioned. So just do it. And you have to be respectful of people, but, you know. And so the idea is to get them, you know, to try some of those things. And we started doing some of the magic tricks to show, because, you know, some of them say, well, if I see it, I believe it kind of thing. And I tell people, just because you see something, don't believe it, because your brain fills the gaps. And, you know, you will think you saw something when you actually didn't. So it's working out really good. We're helping, by the end of this year, we're going to have this program sort of wrapped up in a package kind of thing and start sending it out to different schools and different groups for them to try out, to try in the schools. It's really something, you know, this is the time to get them in school where they're young, where they're being rebels. Kids kind of, in high school, they kind of like this because, with this I can, you know, I got more power than everybody else. We also have a podcast in Spanish for those of you that want to practice the language or whatever. We touch all the same things that other podcasts talk, intelligent design, you know, the Bible passages and, you know, the things, why, you know, how do we know what's true and what's not true and so forth. We're talking about same-sex marriage at our next podcast, for instance. And so do it in a Spanish forum for those people that don't speak Spanish. We already have lots of great podcasts in English. So this is why we're doing it in this. And of course, we also encourage young activism, people to get involved in every group or whatever. But let me give you another short anecdote before I finish here that really is critical, and it will point out why it's important. At the last meeting that I did at the high school, there was a 9th grader. Yeah, I think she was 9th or 10th grade. She wasn't quite 16. She was going to be 16 soon. Gorgeous young girl. And so, I gave my presentation, and the kids seemed to enjoy it. And then when they all left, the teacher called this particular student. I'll call her Margarita. Margarita, come over here. Let me ask you some questions. So the teacher is asking the student in front of me. Tell me, Margarita, how you doing in math? She says, oh, I love math. I got an A+. I have the highest grade in the class. Excellent. And how are your other grades? Straight A's. She's got straight A's on everything. Oh, wonderful. And what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to work at NASA, or I want to be an astronomer. I want to be a physicist. I really love the stars, and I really love these things. I'm almost having an orgasm there. Oh my God. If we can replicate this 1,000,000 times, this child, oh, beautiful. And so it says, are you starting to think what university to go to? He says, well, I don't know if I'm going to go to college. My mom says that I need to quit school at 16 so I can become a beauty pageant participant. Or if I really insist in staying in school, she wants me to become a reporter. I'm thinking newspapers are going out of business, and a reporter. So, the problem that a lot of the Hispanics have, at least in Northern Virginia, is that the parents didn't even go to high school themselves. And so they can't support. They're trying to live their lives to their child. They're trying to provide. So in this case, the child has no problem. The problem the child has is the parent. And so we're trying to get involved now with the parents also and try to convince them that this is the way to go, to let the child do the things. And this young lady said, well, my mom says that mathematics, that's fantasy stuff. That stuff is not even real. And you're going to starve if you just get a math degree. And I'm going to fight the face palm. I told that girl, I said, look, my son graduated from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is a fantastic school, with a mathematics degree. And before he even graduated, in his junior year, Microsoft came and hired him for $80,000 a year with zero experience, and then gave him, $7,000 moving expenses, even though he only had a couple of t-shirts and a bicycle. So the money is there. Another child, another girl in there complained, she was, we had a parent-teacher conference, and they asked the students, do you want to say anything to your parents while they're here in this forum? And this girl started bawling and crying, and she says, I want to tell my mom that I don't want her to pick me up at 2:30 anymore. I want her to let me stay and participate in the school activities, because every day she comes and picks me up at 2:30 and takes me to work to go clean until midnight or until 1 a.m. every day, and I start doing my homework at 1 a.m. and then I have to get up at 6 a.m. to do it beforehand, and I'm just too tired. I keep falling asleep in my classes, and I just want to be a regular student. I just want to be a student. So there's machismo is well and alive in the Latino community, and that's one of the things that secularism, I think, teaches, that since you're allowed to question everything, one of the things you can question is the role of women in Latino society. They're not just to push out babies, that they can be self-realized in having careers and so on. So one of the things we try to do is we try to bring in people that are good examples to the Latino girls, also to Latino young women. We have, for instance, one of our members is a top-notch DNA researcher in New York City, and she's Adriana Haggai, and atheist, fantastic. She's a mother. She's got 2 kids, and she's involved, and so on and so forth. So there are ways to show that, hey, just because you want to have some kids or you want to have a family, you can still have a career. You can still do all these things that you're talented to do. So I'm hoping that all of you that are here today, that you see this as part of your own goal to help out this community that is very silent, very underground. A lot of times they don't want to be noticed. A lot of times you can't tell them until they say something and you feel a slight accent maybe, or whatever. But you know, I think that it's a good way of helping ourselves, helping the United States, encouraging people, encouraging the Hispanics to study the hard sciences, chemistry, math, and so forth, and helping out in any way you can, and encouraging people to join different groups, not just one particular group. Nothing says you can't be a member of one group and another group and another group. So I hope that you help me out in this quest. And again, the goal, as I mentioned in the last slide, is to make sure that that there's no longer a need for an organization such as ours. I'd love to see that day when say, you know, there's no need to have a Hispanic-American Freethinker organization. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much. I think we have maybe a couple of minutes to ask if there are any questions on anything.
Got a couple over here.
Okay.
So what can atheist organizations, either national organizations or local groups, do to help support you in your work?
I thought you wasn't gonna. I thought you were not going to take that $50 I gave you to ask that.
I am the queen of softball questions.
Excellent. So there. You gave him a hard question yesterday. I remember. There are many things. One of them is to encourage them to look us up, of course, you know, because there's a feeling of being, oh, there's somebody like me, there's somebody like us. The first meetup that we had, the second meetup that we had on Hispanic, and when we decided that we were going to do this organization, was we had about 10 people, and there was one guy very quiet sitting in the corner. He was a day laborer. He had just come from work. He was been painting, he had paint all over, and very quiet, sitting in the side, from El Salvador. And he said, after we all went around introducing, he started saying, you know, I thought there was something wrong with me. I'd never seen, you know, people more educated than I am that feel the same way I do, and thank you so much for this group, and so on, and so, you know, and it was that feeling that, hey, we're Latinos, and you know, I'm not weird, I'm not, you know, because sometimes they see it as a foreign thing. Oh, that atheist thing is American stuff, evil, you know. And so one of the things is to encourage them to look us up and just be part of the conversation. Second, what I asked a lot of the groups to do is to think bilingual sometimes. If you're planning to put a sign in a Latino area or something like that, you may want to think of being really, really creative and working on a sign that is Spanglish, that is maybe half English, half Spanish, or you can see that if someone that speaks English only reads it, they understand what it says, and if someone that speaks Spanish reads it, they also will get what it's saying, and that way be able to create that atmosphere that, hey, we're an inclusive organization, we're inclusive in this area. A lot of the Hispanics that I met were people that were not terribly comfortable being in the middle of mainstream America yet. And so this is a way of saying, hey, we're inclusive. So once in a while, if you've got a lot of money in your organization, throw in some Spanish signs, throw in, you know, things of the sort. And of course, what I do always is I always refer people to other groups. So if they don't like to be in this group, there's another group they can try, and so on. Now, Latino groups, we're the only ones so far. But like I said, I encourage people to join different organizations, and I know CFI and you know, the Richard Dawkins Foundation is about to put out a website in Spanish, and we have I know that Lorena Rios just finished translating a book, you know, Why We Believe in Gods into Spanish, which is a very short book for high school level and up students that I encourage you to. So if you come across Spanish literature, keep it handy and pass it around and so on. So that would be a great way of helping people feel more comfortable with it.
You had mentioned that you were putting the finishing touches on your high school program.
Yes, sir.
And that you were going to be rolling that out nationwide. What's the target date on that, and what can we do to help you get that rolled out in Dallas?
Oh, excellent. We're hoping to get this done no later than the end of the year for sure. What we've been doing so far is over the last year we've been testing things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And the way we test it is we give, for instance, we give a presentation to the kids for an hour and so on, And then 3 days later, the teacher will go and ask them, what did they talk about 3 days ago? And see how much they retained and so on and so forth. Like that, we've identified some kids that are natural skeptics, of course, and then they feel a little bit more comfortable and so on. We still have to be very careful because we don't want the parents to come back with a backslash saying, hey, you're here indoctrinating or telling them that religion is bad or so on and so forth. So that's why we're taking our time in making sure that we're providing some good stuff at the high school level. We don't want to insult their intelligence. We want them to be treated, but empower them, and that's the idea. So it's working together with teachers and educators and getting that done. But I think by the end of the year, and let's touch bases, send me an email, Facebook, whatever, and I'll keep you posted because, I mean, this is the program, by the way, will be in Spanish and English, and later we'll expand it to other languages. So that way, you know, it can be used with any group.
So I'm over here. Definitely we want to get you down to Austin, Central Texas area so that you can help us work better because there's a large Hispanic community, Austin, San Antonio. But this question is kind of like just a matter of curiosity for me. Beth and I often will go down to San Antonio, and lately we went down to the Mexican market in San Antonio. One of the things that I saw in your original slide, you talked about preference for identity, a Latino, Hispanic. I don't know if you've seen this. In San Antonio, there are T-shirts everywhere and all sorts of almost kind of angry things that are like, I'm not Latino, I'm not Hispanic, I'm Mexican. And I don't know if this is just like national pride or if the Pew study needs to go actually talk to some Mexicans in San Antonio.
Excellent point. And that's one of the biggest problems that Latinos have in the United States. One of the reasons why, even though there are far more Latinos than African Americans, there's an African American president. How many Latino candidates for president did we have? Not that many. And so the problem with a lot of Latinos is when they first meet, I mean, some of you are Latino, where are you from? You know, and I have a niece born in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and you ask her, where are you from? Medellin, Colombia. No, you're not. You're from Pawtucket. So a little bit it's a little bit like pride, but which is again what's helped sort of divide and conquer is what's helped a lot of people take advantage of that by picking on those people. I noticed, for instance, a lot of those preachers, the Pentecostal preachers, Salvadorians, so all his congregation are Salvadorians, and so on. And so they, I've come across with some of those that says, yeah, I'm not Latino, I'm not Hispanic, I am blah, blah, blah. And it's more like national pride kind of thing. What I tell people like that is they say, look, man, when you're being discriminated, they don't ask you what country you're from. They just discriminate you because you're Latino, you know, and that's it. They think you should be cutting grass or you should be, you know, doing some other menial job. So you have to, part of encouraging people, and I think secularism goes a long way because secularism helps people question patriotism. Also, why am I being so patriotic and what's so good about, I mean, I tell people, I'm a Colombian descent, I tell people, what has Colombia ever done for me? I mean, it allowed me to be born. I came here when I was 11 years old. So what? That's it, you know, everything, all the opportunities, everything I've gotten in this country. And so I'm a U.S. citizen and nothing more, you know, no dual citizenship, nothing like that. And part of it, I think, is that secularism. So thank you for bringing that up.
Resonates a lot, you know, with my experience in South LA schools. And I just completed a chapter called Women of Color Beyond Faith and looked at the Pentecostal phenomenon, looked at a few statistics. Of course, as you know, the few Hispanic statistics say that there is an increase in the numbers of Hispanic male non-believers, but there has not been a corresponding increase in the numbers of Latino Hispanic female non-believers. In fact, there's been a large increase in the number of Latinas that are actively involved in the Pentecostal movement. And certainly I see that on the grassroots level of South LA, vis-a-vis this explosion of storefront churches, that are really being powered by working class Latinas feeling that they have some degree of enfranchisement within those congregations. And I think there's a lot of paradox there because it does convert with enfranchisement given the institutionalized racism and criminalization and economic disenfranchisement are constantly besieged with this drive to be more moral. And that a lot of the hyper-religiosity is coming out of that, the hypersexualization, of the black and brown female body, particularly young women of color, and that some of the religiosity is a pushback against that.
Well, there's no superficial. It's a very complicated and intertwined relationships that are done in there. The Latino culture is very much pushes a lot the submissiveness of women, and religion asks for submissiveness. And so, in my family, all the most religious people are the women, and I think it has a lot to do with that because it's giving up power. And the men feel less threatened also, I think, in that respect. So it's a very complicated issue. The women are seen as the ones that have to push morality, and of course, religion sells itself as the morality. And well, Don Juan, you got the guys that they screw around and they're men, and they get excused a lot. So it's I think that's where the culture plays a big role. Because they're seen as, well, the religion is keeping the women pure, while the guys are still being able to philander and do whatever. One thing, though, in the Latino families is that it doesn't matter how unfaithful, how many children they fathered or whatever, they tend to take care of the kids no matter how many they have. And I've seen people sending money to their wife and kids in Nicaragua and with their wife and kids over here. And being able to sort of support both. What it is, of course, is a cycle of a perpetuity of poverty and ignorance that continues, that is passed on. So it's, I think, a very complicated subject that is multi-level, is fed from many levels. So definitely something that needs to be explored, that I think if we can solve some of those things will help in secularism and in getting people to be...
So do you have a media literacy component to your curriculum? Because I think that's a strong aspect.
Yes, and the problem is that a lot of the literature and a lot of the books that are out there are not in Spanish, that are not by Latino culture. So one of the things we're working on is in developing that part more.
Last question.
Can you explain your logo? Is there some symbology in there?
So our logo, let me see if I can. Oh, well, you see it in the T-shirt right there. Our logo is right here. The logo was made recently. We just right now just going the process on that. It was, and I'll have a whole. We're going to have on our website a whole video of how it came about. The guy that developed it for us is from Mexico, and what he did is he took a lot of the patterns from the clothes of the Amerindians and took some of those things, and then in developing he started thinking about the circles that you have in the atom that you have in American Atheist, for instance, something like that. So he started making some lines. He has a whole storyline on this, like 20 slides on how it ended up with that, and it's really, when I first saw it, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of Microsoft perverted maybe, or but if you, and it's hard to tell in this one, it actually it forms the shape of an H for Hispanic, and let me see if I can get in the top one, so you can see there that there's an H. Negative space, yeah. So that way, for Hispanic-Americans, and the different colors to represent the different races, the different the different things that we have in our community. And again, the idea is that eventually it'll all melt into the great American melting pot. So thank you for asking that.
And thank you, David.
Thank you.